Hey, Doobert, welcome back to the show. My guest today is someone who I think you're really going to appreciate because not only did she adopt her first kitten at the age of 6 years old out of the trunk of somebody's car and set her down this lifelong path, but she's really focused on that intersection between people and animals. She brings a background in social work and doing amazing things. So I'm really excited to have her here today. Christy, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Chris. I appreciate you having me.
So tell us a little bit about you and your organization, and let's go from there.
Sure. It is a long story, but in brief, just to start off, I am the executive director and co-founder of BetterTogether Forever. And we are just really dedicated to supporting pet parents in Los Angeles, basically connecting them to resources, to goods, to services, to really help families stay together and to thrive. So our work really preserves the human-animal bond. It keeps pets with their families safe, healthy, housed, while preventing more pets from ending up on the streets or going into the shelters, which are so overcrowded.
Yeah, I love that because, as you know, I mean, if you keep the animals in the loving homes they're at in the first place, then they don't need to go to the shelter. And oftentimes, at least in my experience, when people have to go surrender their animals, it's like the worst thing. But they've exhausted the resources that they know of. And so it feels like you're like that safety net in between. They're saying, hey, listen, there's actually other things we can do to help you.
Right. We really try to provide options, right? I mean, even like to your point, people don't want to, for the most part, part with their pets, but especially in times today with the housing crisis, financial situations, the economy. I mean, we could go on, right? And so when people don't know where to turn or think they have nowhere to turn, they feel like that's the only choice, or they think it's going to be in the best interest of the pet, right? If you have a sick pet and you can't afford vet care or the medication, you don't want your pet to suffer, right? So you think the best option might be for that pet's best interest to go into the animal shelter, because a lot of people think that the animal shelter will provide care. And of course they provide the care they can, but they certainly can't take care of, sick, injured animals. So
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's like a last safety net, right? I always say shelters are great community resources, but they're not designed to house everybody's animals, right? And as you said, oftentimes the financial challenges, people think there's no other choice, and they make that tough decision. So it's good to know there's organizations like you guys that are helping them with other alternatives. You're out in the LA area, and I know you guys serve a number of different zip codes. I mean, put it in perspective for people. What is life like for animals out there in the LA area?
it's tough. As many say, when people suffer, pets suffer as well, right? So the housing situation is probably the toughest situation faced, because in Los Angeles, many property management companies restrict pets, right? They don't allow pets, or even if they do allow pets, they only allow certain breeds, certain weights. They have pet deposits, right? There's all these sort of obstacles and barriers for people. So one way we help alleviate those barriers is most people would be granted a pet as an emotional support animal, like a prescription, a diabetic with insulin, say. And so we help people get those assessments and those certifications so that they actually can become housed with their pets. So that's really helping in a tremendous amount of ways, right? It obviously prevents pets from going into the shelter. It keeps families together. But when a person needs their pet the most, they can still stay with them without the extra costs and hurdles. So that's a huge way we help. The other way is our pet food pantry. So the pet food pantry, behind veterinary care, pet food is another expense that's skyrocketed, right, with the cost of gas and inflation and groceries and things like that. And, people who are receiving government assistance can't use those food stamps and things to buy pet food. So by providing the pet food pantry, then we can help often a person and pet stay housed together and off the street by just simply providing either pet food or supplies, a crate maybe to keep pets divided or things like that. So, and that's a big thing that we do is not only help pets from going into the shelter, keep pets from going into the shelter. We really do help people either become housed or remain housed, because a lot of times pets will also need to be spayed or neutered or current on vaccines if they're in like temporary housing and going into permanent housing for Section 8 and things like that. So simply by providing, spay or neuter vaccinations and that ESA support, a person can get off the street with their pet.
Now, I know you guys have been around for a number of years. I mean, take us back, Christy, to the time when you realized that this was a need and said, you know what, I need to found an organization to fill in the gaps.
It is a bit of a long story, but I really started, as you had mentioned, in social welfare, right? I just have always had this desire to just give back, be part of the community, help. And I like the idea of return on my investment, right? I want to do as much as I can, helping as many, as I can. So I'll be honest, I jumped around a lot. I mean, the standing joke was like, I didn't keep jobs generally for more than a year or two. And I started in, domestic violence and worked with the mentally ill and those things. And I felt like I needed more to be able to do more. And so then I thought I'd go into corporate America and just make a lot of money so that I could give my money away and volunteer and help and things like that. And that's not exactly easy or the way to go either. You don't always make a lot of money in for-profit. And so I have always volunteered and always loved animals. And the more I got involved helping animals, so finding them on the street on the way to my corporate job, or when I was in social work and I had a pregnant and parenting teenager that had a puppy that she was just going to let out on the street being flashed. And I was like, oh, you can't do that. Give me a week and I'll figure it out. And so it really just snowballed into me really focusing all my volunteer efforts on animal welfare. And I was always on the rescue side. So let's adopt our way out of this. Let's transport our way out of this. And those are all great things. But what I'd come to see is that we really need to look at prevention. There's so much heartache once an animal comes into the shelter. Heartache by the family leaving the pet. Heartache of the pet, of course. Heartache of the staff, right? And the volunteers who see this pet coming in and the division of the family, right? And so I thought, gosh, we really need to just be more preventative minded. So I actually started with law and legislation and trying to get the ban to stop the sale of puppy mill and kitten milled animals. And there was a store in my city selling animals. So got the legislation passed in Glendale very quickly. And then another community member from Burbank had seen and heard about it and wanted to partner. And we got it ultimately passed in Burbank. And then we opened our own rescue only pet store. Okay. And so that then presented its own challenges. And again, seeing the need more for prevention instead of rescue in through that store and that situation. And so then in 2017, I was actually sort of gifted Bark Avenue Foundation. So the founder of Bark Avenue, Melanie Pozis, wanted to focus more time on her family. And so there's my kitty. Wanted to focus more time on her family. And she said, I'd love to turn the organization over to you. And that's when I really delved into prevention. We did a lot of spay and neuter, we did humane education, and we started working with unsheltered people and their pets. And then, of course, COVID happened and everything shut down and we couldn't go into schools anymore. We couldn't do spay and neuter clinics. You couldn't get permits because you needed the PPE thing, equipment and masks and gloves and things. So then knew that the community would need us more than ever and wanted to figure out a way to get to the community. Basically, Home Dog LA merged into Bark Avenue Foundation, and we are what we are today. So long-winded.
Yeah, but there's a lot in there to unpack. I mean, you as a leader saw the opportunities, but it also sounds like you had to pivot a lot along the way.
Lots of pivoting. And let me just stress by saying too, I really never had envisioned being an owner, a business owner of any kind, of a for-profit, of a not-for-profit. And this really just landed in my lap, and I really hesitated because I really knew nothing about running a business and really had to learn. And I continued to learn all the time because, as you said, especially in not for profit, you do have to pivot much more, I think, than in for profit, because in for profit you can sell things, right? You can change it. You can it's more up to you to bring in. It's easier, I think, a little bit to bring in money because you have something that the public wants, right? Whereas in not for profit, we have what people want, what people need, but they can't afford it, right? So we're expecting other people, partners, organizations, the community donors, to pay for it, and that's a challenge.
Yeah, I totally understand. I mean, fundraising for the types of programs that you're doing, because the constituents that you support largely aren't able to pay it forward and pay it back to you, right? So it's like a dual thing. You're trying to help, but then you're always in that mode of having to go find fundraising or sponsorship in some way in order to pay for the programs that you provide.
Right, right.
So tell me about, I mean, as a leader, it's got to be hard some days to lead your team because sometimes you see, as I always say, the dark side of society, or you see some really sad stories, and it's every day is not a good day in animal welfare. How do you motivate your team and lead your team through that?
You know, it's particularly challenging too when so many work remotely, right? And so many are siloed and things like that. So we definitely have a weekly Google Meet. So we definitely always meet once a week. I have an absolute open door policy, if you will. I mean, I'm always reachable. I really am. I answer my phone, email, you can text. I try to have like events. We're either a part of events, community type events that other organizations bring together, pet event days, pet wellness days, so that, you know, we can come together at those. We try to do like happy hours and some fun art fundraisers, and teams always invited for those types of things. But I would say the biggest probably uplifting moments for the team are all the wins. I mean, for all the sad stories, and of course there are so many happy ones. And I used to tell the stories that are the big stories, right? Which we do, right? Like I said, we have absolutely helped get unhoused off the street. And I mean, within like 48 hours,
Wow.
you know, we had an unhoused person who was actually going to be getting permanently housed at a horse rescue. They had like a little tiny home, or I don't really know. It might have been an apartment, but either way. And in order for them to be housed there, the dog, a pit bull named Miracle, needed to be spayed, needed to be current on vaccinations, needed emotional support animal certification. And we got that all done in 48 hours. And when I say we, it's very much a collective we, right? The pet parent had to get to all the places, right, that they needed to. Our partner vets had to, you know, squeeze them in. You know, so it's definitely a collaborative effort when that happens, but that's a huge win for the team. But I would say even the small ones, and I will say that we actually help a lot of people humanely put their pet to sleep when it's their time.
Sure.
Because they think that the shelter will do that the animal shelter, you can bring your pet in and they will put their pet to sleep. And eventually that might happen, but it's not like they walk in the door, they take the pet in the back, you can be there. None of that, right? Not all shelters have a veterinarian on staff all the time. And so the pet may sit in a cage in the back for days, you know, and that's no fault of the shelter. That's just the system, and funding and all kinds of things. But we get some of the nicest messages from people because we got them in quickly. So even just yesterday, we had a person with an 18-year-old dog that came into the animal shelter who didn't want their pet to suffer. It was time. It was humane euthanasia, end of life. We got them into the vet at the end of the day, and we covered that cost. But if we're not at the shelter to meet that person, if we're not there to call the vet, if we're not there to provide the voucher, if they can't, all those things have to fall into place. And then, of course, we would cover that cost. But we get the nicest messages about how kind, how helpful, how much easier we made it. Without us, their pet would have suffered. And so even though it's a passing of a pet, which is very sad, those are the stories, those messages, those testimonials, those photographs are really what keep the staff motivated and going. And us sharing those, because a lot of the requests we get are through our phones or texts or things like that. So different team members might be helping. So we don't always necessarily know what each and every one. So we have stories, right? So we have online a place where we can all put stories and pictures. And so any one of our team members can read them, or we post them in our newsletter, or we'll just share them in an email if they're or we'll share them on that weekly call.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, you're helping the staff to realize that, we're all in this together, and it's hard. Sometimes you're focused on that one case, that one person, and it's really frustrating. And being able to back out and say, but look at the good that we're doing and look at the impact that you're having. One of my favorite quotes is, be kind, because everyone you encounter is battling something you know nothing about. And in this case, it's somebody that is realizing their animal is suffering. They're at the end of life. They've had a great quality of life, but now they have to let them go, but they can't afford to do it. It's not cheap. It's not free.
Right.
So knowing that you're there as a resource to help them, it really just makes that process much easier on that person. I'm curious, do you have metrics, stats, data as to the number of animals that you guys have impacted?
So that's a great question. And it's a difficult one to provide funders, right? Because everybody wants to see that data.
Sure.
And the short answer is we do. The harder answer is proving it in this sense, right? So we have what we call an inquiry log, where we log every person that reaches out to any of us. So we all have access to it, right? So whether it's a call, a text, an email, or they've come in person, and we log it, because again, some team members are part-time and we have to jump in maybe when somebody's off and things like that, but as well as for data tracking. And so we get generally about 350 requests for help every month, right?
Oh.
Now, one could argue every one of those is a surrender prevention or a shelter intervention or divergence, whatever you want to call it, right? Because what would happen, right? If we didn't provide the phone number or the resource or the pet food or cover the cost, every one of those could turn into a pet entering the shelter. And quite honestly, Chris, maybe sometimes some of them do, right?
Yeah.
Because we're looking at moments in time. We log it, we track it, but perhaps they may enter, but perhaps they never would enter as well. So basically last year we gave $145,000, over $145,000 worth of pet food and supplies away through our pet pantry. And most of that is either donations or Tito's Vodka for Dog People actually gave us a grant for our pet pantry, and then we got matching funds. And then we have small pet stores that will give us costs. We'll give the food at cost or at their discounted show rates. So all that coming together. So we gave that away last year through the pet pantry. We did 1,200. We assisted 1,200 with veterinary care. So, and then the number of inquiries were, I believe, over 4,500. So people we actually spoke to and gave them something. It doesn't always translate to dollars because we're having to really cut back on veterinary care vouchers at this point. But but it's either we gave them pet food, we gave them a phone number, we gave them options, we gave them resources, we connected them. A lot of what we do is even connecting to like a free surgery. So Sam Simon Foundation will do free surgeries, but maybe the pet just needs some blood work. So we covered the blood work for maybe $150 so that then they could get the free surgery at Sam Simon, and we helped them complete the application. So I'm going to argue that we helped 4,500 last year.
Yeah, I love that because you're even like you said, even if you're providing them resources, you're giving them other areas to go, other organizations to contact. That's absolutely metrics that you should track and be proud of because you are impacting the lives of that many people and that many animals. And as you said, the sad part is you don't always know, right? Did we ultimately help or did they ultimately have to make a difficult decision? But you at least were a part of that journey and trying to help them find the resources. I feel like that's such a hard thing in the space today is you don't know. I mean, you and I are professionals in the animal welfare space, right? We know where to go. We know who to call. We know how to find information. But, for the general public, they often don't know where to find these resources. And it sounds like you guys are curating that information for them.
Yeah. And, I would say that the system's tricky, right? Systems are tricky and everyone has their own forms and you need to do it online. You need to come in. It starts this day, it ends that day. And it's really challenging for people to navigate. And a lot of the people we work with are seniors or where English isn't their first language. And so that's a big part of what we do. And again, even the people that is all we have done for them are almost even more appreciative than others, even because that's all they needed. Not everybody needs, right? We all have different levels of needs and where we're at in life and challenges in the moment. And so, maybe one person it's just pet food. Maybe another person can't afford vet care, but they can't afford thousands of dollars, for the ear infection. And I will give a very big plug to our partners who, give us discounts and work with people. We had an unhoused person that was just getting into housing, left her dog, did not realize about spay, and called us at the end of the day on a Wednesday with the dog having a vaginal infection. And the first thing I always start out with is I'm not a veterinarian and I'm not looking at your dog, right? Because we're over the phone. But I said, I am concerned that this is pyometra. And I explained to her what pyometra was. She did not have transportation. We have a partnering vet that is walk-in only that will see the first 50 animals, but you do have to arrive very early. She got her 7-year-old pit bull on public transportation and went to North Figueroa Animal Hospital. And sure enough, it was pyometra. Now, there are some organizations, there's Sam Simon that will do that surgery for free, but there wasn't time, right? She had a couple $100. The veterinarian reduced the cost and we helped with a couple $100. And they weren't even sure that the dog was going to make it, but they were, doing the surgery. I mean, she called me at 8:00 in the morning saying she had gotten there at like 5:30 saying that it is pyometra. They need to take her in right away. Nafsi, I think, is the dog's name. And this was just last week. And so the email she sent me before her dog was even done with surgery was, even if she doesn't make it, you restore my faith in humanity is the actual word she said, because I listened to her. I gave her guidance and helped, but the money wasn't the biggest part because she would have figured it out. And we only helped with a couple $100, and the vet, like I said, helped a lot and she did as well. And that's what we do. That's what I like to say of what we do. We bridge gaps, we connect people, and we do the best we can to spread out the funding, so that we're not wasteful.
Help as many as you can. So,
yeah.
Christy, as we start to kind of come to the end of the show, I always like to end with our lightning round questions, just so we can learn a little bit more about you as a person. So you ready?
Sure. Yeah.
So the first one is you got to pick one: kitten purrs or puppy breath?
Oh, kitten purrs. I'm sorry. dog people.
I'm kind of with you. The kitten purrs are, yeah. I have 5 cats and gotta love the purrs. So are you an early bird or a late night owl?
I'm kind of bold. I'm early bird, fresh in the morning, love
Okay.
peace and quiet and get a lot of work done. But I like to, have fun at night on the weekends to blow off the steam.
Yeah. What do you do?
But early morning, I would say.
Okay. More early morning. So what do you like to
Yeah.
do to decompress after a hard day?
Oh, well, my husband gets an earful. He's our biggest
He's your support.
support, right? But no, I do go to the gym now. I was never a gym person, but I'm not a gym person. I'm a class person, but I need someone holding me accountable, right? So I can't do it online and Zoom and things like that. I go to a gym close to the house and I do 5 classes usually a week, 1 hour. And that's a big help. And then of course my own household and pets and I do love to travel. And we actually went to a Dodger game last night. So,
Nice. Fun.
I'm open in a variety of fun.
Okay. If your pets were writing a Yelp review about you as a pet parent, how many stars do you think you'd get?
Oh, I would get 5, the best.
They would say mom is the greatest mom. I've had people tell me, one lady told me 3. She's like, yeah, because we're amazing, but yeah, sometimes he still wants more. So it's good to know your pets respect and love what you do for them.
I think I'm overburdening. We're seniors. We're in a household of seniors now. So 2 pit bulls, 11 and 14, and a cat, 19. And so I am really like watchful and supplements, and I'm a little bit neurotic, probably. They might think that, but I still think we get a 5 star.
I love it. And my last question for you is what do you want your legacy to be?
I want my legacy to just be, I guess, that I tried, that I cared, that I'm getting emotional, that everyone matters. It all matters, so please, do something. I'd like in my lifetime to see the shelter system change. I'd like people to go to the animal shelter to adopt, not to surrender. And I think the biggest thing we can do is change the mindset of the public of what the animal shelter is, and that it's not, that it's all myths, that they're old dogs or old cats or problems or medical. So I'd like to see it in my lifetime that it become what it should be, and that just for pets that have fallen on hard times have gotten lost, right? Like,
Sure.
but not where people go to, so like the first place they think of to surrender is the shelter, but that's not the first place they go to adopt. But I'd like my legacy to just be that I cared, that I tried, and that I did make a difference, and I inspired others to do something, to do their part.
I love that, Christy. And I think you're doing amazing work. I, for one, appreciate you and all the work that you and your team have done and all the work that you're still doing on a day-to-day basis. So thank you. And thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for all you do and having this platform to share stories and hopefully inspire other people too.